to anybody.
Well, it's not approved till next month, or next.
Oh, that's true. I could have done that.
Yeah.
You're right. Oh, just, that's a little typo. She forgot to put the instead of next, no, a year. Oh.
We're live.
Oh, we are, okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to our board meeting. Documents provided to a majority of the governing board regarding this agenda will be made available for public inspection in the district office located at 20932 Big Canyon Road, Middletown, California, during normal business hours. Such writings and documents will be posted on the district's website and clicking on Board of Education. A file copy is also available in the front of the meeting room. Said file is not to be removed from the room. A focus on all of our students' best interest is the touchstone for our decisions. Remember, it's okay to be hard on issues and not on people. Okay, we call the public meeting to order at 5 o'clock where we adjourn to closed session. We establish a quorum at that time. Allison, will you lead us in the pledge? Absolutely.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, we're definitely louder when we have a room full of students.
Yeah. Okay, and Annette, would you report out on closed session?
No action was taken during closed session.
Okay. Could I have approval of the agenda as it is presented?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, it was moved by Allison, second by Chris. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 4-0. I need to keep track of where I am. Approval of minutes. May I have approval of the minutes as presented?
Move to approve the minutes.
It's been moved by Chris,
I second.
seconded by Allison. Are there any other questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Oppose? Passed 4-0. Okay, at this time, Trustee Oakes, do you have anything that you would like to report?
I'd just like to say thanks to all the staff for an amazing week last week. The amount of effort that went into setup and the custodians, the admin, pulling together promotions, events, scholarships, awards events, all that stuff just takes a lot of work, and I thought everything I went to was great, and I appreciate everybody's hard work.
Good. Trustee Berlager?
I would like to jump on board with Chris there and thank everybody for everything that was made beautiful and ceremonious for every graduation and every event and made everybody feel special. I got to attend 4 graduations, all of which were pretty fantastic, and it's lovely to see our students moving up and onward, and the excitement and all of the fun events that they do previous to that to celebrate their final product. So congratulations and thank you to everybody.
Okay, thank you. And Trustee Lee?
Same thing. Really wonderful end of the school year. Super big thank you to all of the staff and parents and teachers and students and everyone for getting through the end of the school year. It's always a really fun but very exhausting time, and the events that I was able to attend were really positive, and just really thankful to be part of the MUSD community and appreciative of all the work that the team put into making the end of the year special.
Okay, and I think everybody feels that way, you know, it was a lot of good energy out there. I would just like to say that we have 3 people that are retiring from our district. We have Joe Hernandez, Terry Langford, and Charles Roach. And I'm hoping that, right?
And Darren Jekyll.
Oh, and Darren Jekyll, 4 people, wow. And so I would like to consider getting a plaque or something to give to them, and maybe putting that as part of what we do, if that's something that we can talk about, and, you know, maybe in the district office. I even have a picture. I went to Sonoma Charter, and she said, "Look at this plaque that I have for my board members that are leaving." And I went, "Oh, what a great idea." Not for board members so much.
You're not leaving us soon, are you?
No, no, no.
Okay, just
no.
checking.
But I was a retiree that never got recognized, so I would like to start doing that. But anyway, so that's my welcome statement. And Superintendent Crane.
So echo everything that was said about graduation and promotion ceremonies. I am a sucker for a graduation. I only teared up a little. But yeah, laugh it up, Jill. As was talked about, the work that goes into those, especially when we don't know the challenges necessarily as superintendent and board members as a governing team that our students have gone through, but we know that they've gone through challenges to get to where they are, and it's very impressive the work that has gone into that from the student side. Also, as was talked about from the employee side, the work that goes into getting all the records taken care of, to get all the scholarships lined up, to get all of the chairs set up and the sound systems and all of that. We had a leadership team meeting on Monday that, as I had been planning it, was thinking that we would go like 8:30 to 3. And then as I was sitting in my office on Saturday kind of finalizing the agenda, I'm going, my goodness gracious, if I am as tired as I am, the principals and directors have to be even more tired. So we're going to take that chunk out, we'll put that chunk off to July and shorten the meeting, just because, yeah, they've been working really hard. And when you come into a room like this and it's all set up perfectly and nicely and our microphones are all set up and working, and it's easy to take for granted the work that gets done, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, and the team that we have is really top notch. We think when graduation, obviously the teachers and the admin are the ones that are up on the stage and such, but it's also a lot of the classified employees who are helping to supervise playgrounds and helping keep kids safe and drive kids to and from school and all of those other things and feed them, and all of those other things that go into running a school and making it the positive experience. And I know we're low in numbers, and I'm saying all this for you guys who already know it, but anyway, it's been a great couple of weeks, and it's always, I love the start of the school year and I love the end of the school year. I don't know which I am more a favorite of, because they're both great for different reasons.
Welcome to our community.
Yep.
Jeff, I just wanted to say I did have one of the graduation speakers come to me and say that they really appreciated your advice as far as, because one of the things is that it's really hard to get up and speak and present, whether you're a student or the principal or administrator, and it's always windy at graduation, and so everyone is always doing this. And they said, Jeff said, I have a solution. Put your notes in a 3-ring binder. And then you just have to flip the pages, and they don't blow away. And they said that was the greatest piece of advice.
It's amazing how sometimes the simple things are, yeah.
Okay, item F. Anything else at this time?
No, I've rambled for long enough.
Okay. Reports to the board. MTA, I don't see anybody here from MTA. Is there any? No? CSEA?
I. Not on?
You have to hold the button down. That.
Okay, can you hear me?
Thank you.
Thanks. Alrighty, so Leslie Ryan, representing CSEA Chapter 228 as President. We'd like to report that our next negotiations meeting is set for August 18th. We're working with the district to update some job descriptions to include the following. MHS Library Clerk, ASB Bookkeeper, and Locanoma Secretary. The district requested to change the MHS Library Clerk, ASB Bookkeeper, and Translator's work calendar and make them 12-month employees with no additional days or wages. This allows these employees to start in July so they have time to prepare for their early August school date. This was presented and ratified to our members and passed. So finally, I would like to take a few minutes to express gratitude on behalf of our chapter to 3 employees for their dedicated service to our district. Terry Lamford is retiring after 43 years of dedicated service. Throughout her time here, she has held various roles and will be greatly missed. We wish you all the best in your well-deserved retirement. Thank you, Terry. Joe Hernandez, who is also retiring after 28 years of service. Thank you, Joe, for your dedicated hard work. Your expertise and maintenance in our IT department has been invaluable, and you will certainly be missed. Wishing you all the best in your retirement. And Tina Rockwell, while not retiring, deserves a heartfelt thank you for your commitment and unwavering support for Middletown High School. Thank you, Tina, and best wishes on your next adventure. Do you guys have any questions for me?
No questions, but thank you for bringing that up. And,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, I never worked with Tina, but I worked with Joe and Terry. Yeah, for
Yeah.
many years.
I'd like to echo what you said. I think it would be great if our district did acknowledge people that retire, like teachers also.
Yeah.
I kind of refer to classified because that's who I represent here, but I think that would be great, right? I mean, I know people always complain about getting plaques, and so but I'd rather complain that I got a plaque than to get no
good.
recognition or observation of that. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. So all right, thank you.
Okay,
you.
thanks, Leslie. Thank you, Leslie. Okay, I see Ray's here for Van Pelt. Do you have something you'd like to share? Always.
Good evening, board members. I think my main purpose in an update is to explain why we're not building a new gym.
Yet?
Yes. So we're currently still in CGS. On May 28th, the Geotech met with CGS on basically selling CGS on the methods and the means and methods they use to gather the report and the data. They had an extremely long meeting with CGS, went through the entire report. CGS requested one correction. That correction was made, and the report was stamped and submitted to CGS on June 2nd. We were hoping for their review to be somewhat cursory because they'd already reviewed it with the Geotech. Technically, they have 30 days to respond from June 2nd. We have not heard anything yet. So we're a week and a half in. We are still waiting for that response from CGS. We have, just to move as far and as fast as we can, we've made an appointment with DSA for our that would be our final appointment where we've corrected everything that DSA has asked us to correct, and they would stamp our drawings out. I believe that appointment is 6/18. So if we don't have CGS approval by then, we'll have to cancel that appointment and remake it. As busy as CGS is, that appointment can be another month out. So we're just hoping that we gambled that we'd get approval by 6/18, and hopefully no one DSA is listening right now. But we're hoping that we'll get approval by then and we'll be able to go in and get the project stamped out. That being said, market-wise, right now, even if I had a DSA stamp today and ready to go, to get subs lined up and vendors lined up during the summer, which is the absolute busiest time for all contractors that do this sort of work, would be somewhat challenging. So our plan is to get our DSA stamp, get our approval as fast as we can, and then at the end of August, we'll put the project out on the street. We have a fixed number that the contractor's going to build the project for, but he still has to bid it and get subcontractors lined up. This fly wants to give you an update as well. He still has to get contractors lined up. So we're probably going to push this project back to August, September, and then start it at that time. As far as the rest of the projects, we have a notice of completion on the agenda tonight for the painting project, which is basically signifies everything on the project is 100% complete, and we are handing it over to the district for warranty, maintenance, and that process. So that's what the knock signifies. We are still working on final financials with the design team and the contractor on the Tallman Gym project. So at some point, I'll have a closing change order for that project to bring to the board, and probably an ad service for the design team. Okay? Questions?
Ad service for the design team, what does that mean?
Yeah, so the contract for the Tallman Gym was signed, was approved by the board prior to Van Pelt being involved. And that contract was structured in a way that essentially the design team's fee was based on a percentage of the value of the project. So not a fixed fee, but a percentage of the value of the project. So whatever that project value ended up being, you apply that percentage to it, and that's their total fee. So they estimated what their total fee would be. The project value was higher than that. We've had a meeting with the design team in hopes that we can get, I was begging for a little bit of help, and they're working on that right now.
And
So-
having been in that meeting, Ray also, I mean, it wasn't just an appeal to emotion. He did bring in some numbers and some things like you're charging for a percentage of these pieces of the project that you guys really weren't involved in, and was able to make, I have a bias, but I thought they were very well-reasoned arguments. And so having been in that meeting, I want to just kind of express my appreciation for Ray and the work that he and the Van Pelt team continue to do. Because this is one of those where he could just say, yep, that's what it is, here's the bill. But that's not what he's doing. He's working for us every day, every dollar, trying to make sure that we get the best bang for our buck.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to get as many of your little projects done at the end of this as I possibly can. And every, 10,000 here and 10,000 there helps with lunch shelters and fencing and that sort of thing. Okay?
Wow.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? I'm sorry. From the board? No?
Okay.
From the audience? Nope.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Okay, special acknowledgement. We don't have that today.
No, sorry.
Sorry, yeah. And community comments, those in the audience desiring to address the board regarding items not on the agenda may do so at this time. Is there anybody online that would like to speak? And there's no blue sheets that are filled out, so I'm not going to.
I will say that we, just in case there's somebody out there, because we did have one who emailed us late last week, and Janelle has reached out a couple times and has not been able to get response from them. So if you're out there and you wanted to speak but didn't,
You have 3 minutes.
please respond to your email. So anyway.
We definitely, at that time, we do look to, we would like people to come and speak to us if they do have a comment that they're concerned with,
For
or
sure.
that they're not concerned with, that they just would like to do a shout out.
Yeah,
That
they
would
can
be
give us
even-
good news too, huh?
Yeah, they can, please do. Okay, the consent calendar, are there any items let me see. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine, are sufficiently supported by prior or accompanying reference materials and information as to not to require additional discussion. Are there any items that anybody would like to be pulled for more information? Yes. I'd like to have, ask item F2, full mine contract. I'm just curious about that one. Are we reimbursed for that cost? This is associated with, I believe, our charter school.
The charter school gets an allocation. The charter school gets an allocation of special ed funding, and when their costs that we provide for them exceed that allocation, then they would be billed for that.
So yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's, if it stays within the allocation, then no. If it goes over the allocation, then yes, they would be billed.
Oh,
But it's not out of our budget.
Yeah, we track it completely separately within our
okay,
financial system. We track the stuff for LCICS separately.
okay. Good, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions or any items that you'd like to have further information on?
Is that particular budget a contractual thing, or is it something that we have to do by law, regardless of our contract with?
For special ed services, that's mandated. We have to do that.
Okay, so that's not something that's
No, the special ed services are mandated.
we have to provide for, we have to provide them a budget.
Yeah, well, yes, because we get through the SELPA, they're part of the SELPA in the county. And so the charter authorizer gets the SELPA funds. So there are other funds, they are direct funded. So as an example, if they're eligible for Title I, that goes directly to them. If they're eligible for state funding for different things, that would go directly to them. But within the SELPA, it comes to their authorizer, and then we have oversight over that and track that within our system for them. Mhm.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar items A through F, I believe?
Do you want me to do thank yous real quick? Before
I'm
we do
so
that, or
sorry.
after? That's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, we just have a couple. Middletown High School Ag Shop wants to thank Sierra Cascade for her generous donation. MHS FFA Sheep Co-op would like to thank Middletown Unified Ag Boosters. And MHS Ballet Folklorico, sorry about that, would like to thank Latinos United of Lake County. So just, again, we always like to give a huge thank you to everybody who donates to our students and programs, because it really does make a huge amount of difference to our students.
Thank you. Allison, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendars, item A through F?
Move to approve.
It's been moved by Chris. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Allison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passed 4-0. Okay, at this time, we'll have our public hearing. We'll open the public hearing for the annual update of the LCAP for the 25-26 school year. It's opened at 6, I can't read the exact number, 28. 6:28.
Hi.
Hi.
So I don't have any slides for you tonight. And it's not as formal of a presentation. This is an annual update of our local control accountability plan. We have the same goals, and I'm going to walk you through to remind everybody what our little motions are. That goal 1 is basic services. That's the foundation. That's the ground floor. It's things like furniture and transportation, Chromebooks, things like that. That's our goal one, that's basic services. Goal two is, we're talking about a tree, the rising of the trunk, the moving upward is the academics. So those are goals like academic support, and making sure, and when you look at the goals and metrics, it's things like our graduation rate and our A to G completion rate and our CTE pathway completion rate and those types of academic metrics. That's where our academic test scores go, is in those metrics. And so that's the trunk of the tree. And then when you get to the leaves of the tree, that's where you sit under the shade of the tree with the lemonade on the summer day. That's the climate and culture. And so that's where you're going to find things like social emotional counseling. You're going to find things like PBIS and social emotional learning and restorative practices. And so those are our three goals that drive what we do. And then within those, we have the actions that we complete the actions, and then we measure them in our metrics. And all of that information is within the LCAP. Last year, we had some, I'm going to go with confusion within our LCAP, that what we had brought to you in June then was not able to be approved by the county office, which is why then we came back in the fall with an update. We submitted the LCAP draft to the county office about a week and a half ago, have gotten a couple of notes back, which we have made some updates on, but haven't heard anything beyond that. So I'm hopeful, since this is pretty much the same plan that was approved last year, that we will be able to move forward with it as it is.
All right.
Questions?
Are there any questions about the LCAP? So just really quick, with the LCAP, one of the areas that we really want to focus on, I believe, is attendance, getting the kids
Yes.
here and stuff. So I just kind of want to throw out an idea that I came up with.
Sure.
I didn't come up with. I heard that this is a
You
great
borrow from
idea.
somewhere else. We borrow
I do.
ideas all the time.
Yeah, but I'll pretend like I came up with it. But an auto daily attendance, just automatically, I don't know if there's a way that it can be ran through our system, that, you know, thank you for Johnny coming to school today, or Johnny missed school today.
Those at home who couldn't hear.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's a possible thing that maybe, you know, maybe your fiscal specialist in the district office can look into to see if we could do some kind of
So
auto dialing.
I'll tell you what we have.
Okay,
And some of the things that we're talking about doing moving forward into next year. So within our system, there is an auto dialer option for when students are absent. And so you'll get a phone call, parents will get an automated phone call to let them know that their student has been absent. What we have done in addition to that is asked our office staff to make personal phone calls. So it's not an automatic dialer. It's a, hey, your student's not here or hasn't been here, or, you know, and are there things that we can do to help? What's the situation? You know, let us to try to, because sometimes parents, there's things that will happen that, well, yeah, they have a dentist appointment this afternoon, and so we're just not going to send them to school.
Right.
Oh my gosh, we would so much rather have them to school for half a day than no day at all. And so that's one thing that is on the positive, supportive side. One of the things that we have not done as much is some of the formal, I don't necessarily want to say consequences side, but sort of, that when a student is truant or chronically absent, having a formal response that includes inviting the parents to come to a meeting, to talk about attendance, to talk about things that, and having some folks from the county be part of that. I haven't spoken with the district attorney, but my understanding is that the district attorney has not wanted to be part of a SARB process, which is where there can be formal consequences, where the district attorney can levy fines or things for parents of students who aren't attending. I don't know that we're going to get to that point of being that formal. First of all, because we really want to be focused on the supportive end of things. That's who we
Yeah.
are as a district. That's who we want to be as a district. But at the same time, you know, as supportive as we want to be, there are times that things need to be a bit more formal and focused on some things that are going wrong. And so having those formal processes to make sure that we are addressing those families. So we are taking a
Working
look
on
at
that.
that on both sides of it, for sure.
I just would like to see the positive side too, you know,
Yeah,
maybe
for sure.
weekly cards going home, postcards going home, you know, even if it's just handed to the students by the principal as they're walking
Yeah.
out, you know. Hey, I heard that you've been here all week. Anyway,
Yeah.
just a thought, but thank you.
Yeah.
I just was trying to kill some time so we didn't have to open it at 6:28 and close it at 6:29.
Oh, I can talk for longer if you'd like.
That's okay. Give a car away. I don't know if we can legally do that. I think I read somewhere that we can't do anything over $200 or something like that.
It'll be a cheap car.
I have a car that.
It'll be a Hot Wheels.
It's a red truck. Yeah, okay.
Before we move on, I'm going to steal some of Tanya's thunder so that the message is coming from me. One of the other things, because we're about to move into looking at the budget, and I want, if anybody's paying attention at home, I want the public communication to come from me first as the superintendent. That as part of our work tonight and later in the month with our budget, we are going to also be asking the board to approve a resolution acknowledging the fact that we have, over the next 3 years, between 1.2 million and 1.5 million of a structural deficit within our general fund, within our unrestricted funds. And so while we are not coming with a placeholder deficit elimination plan tonight, we are going to have to be working on that at the start of next school year. And that is going to be a painful process. And as much as I love focusing on the positives, as I said, I want the bad news to come from me first. That is something that we are going to have to take a look at, and those reductions are going to hurt. We're going to look for as many that won't hurt as possible, but we kind of feel like we've made those and got right up to the edge of, I mean, there were some painful reductions, especially to the people whose positions were being reduced last school year, but we're going to have some that are going to hurt us as an organization even more so coming up. And so while there is some good news in that we are able to achieve a positive certification, we are still going to have to be looking at a deficit elimination plan that's going to be pretty serious. And so I apologize for stealing some of your thunder, but as I said, I want the bad news to come from me first. So, and I realize I'm a little bit out of order because we're still in the LCAP.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, at this time, the public hearing for the LCAP will be closed. Thank you, at 6:38. Okay, public hearing for the proposed budget for 25-26 school year. Prior to final adoption as required by Ed Code Section 42103 and 52062. We're going to be opening up this public hearing at 6:39, and we have a presentation.
Okay, here we go. So, 25-26 budget. So we are, I don't remember how to do it. There we go. Okay. So as Jeff said, we have good news in that we have a positive budget certification. Some of the bad news is that we continue to deficit spend with the reductions that have been made, resulting in the fund balance being depleted in the third year of our multi-year projection.
So that is something that we definitely need to address. Our enrollment is projected with a slight increase for next year. And we can always hope that there's going to be more. So we hear these rumors that there's going to be more students. So we'll hope that they materialize. The ADA is projected with a slight increase just based on that slight increase of enrollment. So before I get to that, some of the other highlights is that the COLA was funded this year for 25-26 at 2.30, which is significantly less than what it was originally projected at 2.93 and then down to 2.43, and it came down to 2.30. So for 25-26, and it has also been reduced from the prior year projections in the out years to 3.02 and 3.42. So even in our out years, we have less of a COLA than was originally projected. So our enrollment is projected at 1457, with the ADA staying at about 92%. The projection for the unduplicated pupil count will remain at 54%. We will be making a more extensive effort in outreach to get more applications completed in hopes of bringing up our supplemental numbers and possibly bringing that up high enough where we would be able to get some concentration funding as well. So some of the things that we're going to be doing for that is when we don't get those applications in is calling families and completing the application for them. As long as they provide us the information, we are authorized to be able to do that. So we're going to be making a much more extensive effort in trying to bring those numbers up for us. So now into some of the details. So on our unrestricted revenues, on our LCFF funding, we have a slight increase of $190,000. This is pretty much based on the increase of the enrollment that is being projected, and from 1453 to 1457. So there's an increase in the EPA, the Education Protection Account, of $22,000. An increase in the supplemental of $37,000, and an increase in the state aid of about $130,000. One of the other factors in 25-26 is that the state will be making a deferral of our June apportionment payment for 1 month. So they canceled the deferral for the current year, and they're putting it out in 1 year, out 1 more year. So the June 26 apportionment payment will be paid to us in July of the following year. So at least it's only 1 month. This will not affect us in any other way other than cash flow, and we will be looking very closely at cash flow projections to make sure that we don't have any issues with cash flow and be able to meet our bills for those for that month. Okay. We don't receive any unrestricted federal monies. In our state revenues, the adjustment there is for the unrestricted lottery funds. All other state revenues are budgeted flat. There's no changes there other than any program that was an expired categorical program. The local revenues, we have a little bit more of a decrease there. We have the special ed transportation funding was reduced by $1,500, and then there's a reduction of the projected MAW funding, which is the Medi-Cal administrative account, which is about $21,000. That's also being reduced. If we increase those services, then as they go on, we'll be recognizing those as those happen. So on the unrestricted expenditures, we have adjustments in our certificated, classified, and benefits. Most of those changes are resulting, are revisions to the position control, which include vacancies. And these changes, some of these changes are we took certificate, so this is some of our ways of saving without losing. So we've found where we could take some certificated staff and move them from the unrestricted side of the budget into a categorical program. that's allowable. And so we have done that for the 25-26 year. And then there was another categorical program that expired. And so we had to take, there was a lot of staffing in there. It was like 522,000, I think, of staffing in there. So we had to move those back in to the unrestricted general fund. And yeah, because that program ended. So those are some of the changes that we see there. And that will help in the long run. Then the revisions to materials and supplies that we have, and operating expenditures and capital outlay, those are all basically revisions that are done because of either one-time expenditures that we're not going to be doing again, capital outlay that was one time, and then more accurately projecting what we're actually going to be spending. And removing, like I said, the capital outlay, those were one-time expenditures as well, so removing those from the budget. Our other outgo remains flat, which that is some transfers that we have to do to the county office for services that they provide for us. And on the indirect costs, we have a slight decrease there. Again, because we've lost some categorical programs, we're not able to capture an indirect cost from those. So there's a slight adjustment there. But we do take the indirect costs on all allowable categorical programs, whatever the allowable is. Okay. So here are other sources and uses. So our transfers in as $130,000 was last year. I mean, $130 last year, and that has been removed from the budget. That was a one-time closing out the residual amount in Fund 17 and moving that back into the general fund. So we do not have any funds in Fund 17 at this time. And then the contributions, you can see the contributions have increased. Our contributions are increasing basically because of increased costs in special ed. You know, it just, there's the services there that we have to provide, those costs are just continuing to escalate. And then we have NPS placement that is quite costly for us as well. In our transfers out, this is money that goes from the general fund to the QZAB, Fund 40. That is our solar debt payment. And so that has been slightly decreased because the debt is going down. The payment has been reduced a little bit, and we have a little bit of money left in that account. So we've made adjustment for that. And that debt will be paid off in 2030. So, which is about a $200,000 debt payment each year. So that will help some when that finally does get paid off. So, okay. Here is our unrestricted fund balance. So the change in fund balance is basically, it's the revenues less expenditures and the transfers out. In here you can see that it creates a negative impact because we start the year out with, in 24-25 with just over 6 million. And when we're closing the year right now, it looks like we're going to close the year at 4.8, which becomes our beginning balance for the next year. So we are definitely deficit spending, and that's the portion that we need to. We'll look at that a little bit more later too, but that is big for us. So you can see that the difference there is 1.2 million, and we just cannot sustain that. So we have to figure out something to bring that number down. So our fund balance projected for 25-26 is just over 3.3 million. And that 3.3 million consists of the $5,000 set aside for the revolving checking account, assigned balances of 1.6 million, and the reserve of 825,000, leaving $869,000 unassigned, and that unassigned balance is what carries the district forward for the MYP for one more year. And the assigned balances of 1.6, within that, 1.3 of that is supplemental funds, 239,000 is MAW funds, and then 63,000 is mandated costs. Those assigned balances, those are programs that when the funds are generated there, they are supposed to be spent back into that program. So they're not really available for us to be using for general purposes, because whatever you're doing for mandated costs should be reinvested in that. For whatever you're doing for the MAW activities should be reinvested in those students. For your supplemental, those are our improved services that we have to do part of the LCAP. So they're not technically totally available to expend on whatever it is that we want. So that's kind of a summary of our ending fund balance there. And then we go into the restricted revenues. So here we have a lot more activity. In the restricted LCFF, that's the property tax transfer that happens for special education. It has a slight decrease in the funding of just over $7,000. Then we go to the federal revenues. We have a lot of changes here. Our Title I, the prior year revenue was removed, $68,000. Federal COVID funds are fully expended and are being removed from the budget, and that's, $147,000. Then we have the special ed basic grant that increased for the current year of $1,600, but has a prior year reduction of just over $68,000. Title III and Title IV have been reduced for prior year revenue for a total of $42,000. And then we have applied for and received the Perkins grant, which is part of the CTE pathway. And that one we've recognizing $14,000. Again, there are a lot of changes in the state revenue as well, as you can see there. The ACES program has had a reduction of $57,000. The universal pre-K one-time funding is fully expended and removed from the budget. That balance was $173,000. The restricted lottery has a reduction of prior year revenue of just over $3,000. The CTIG has reduced for prior year revenue $84,000. The Ag Incentive Program has prior year reduction of $14,000. The Secondary Specialized Program, prior year decrease of $139,000. And the in-person instruction was removed for $862. This grant was fully expended and expired on 9/30/24, so that one is being completely removed from the budget. The Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant is, when those funds were originally issued out to all of the schools, I'm trying to remember what year, a few years ago, they gave you an amount, an award amount, and then a few months later they said, oh, well, we gave you too much, we're taking some back. So they took it back, and I think it was a state budget crisis that generated that. I'm not exactly sure. I was retired during that time. And so that money that they took away, they're giving back to us. Okay, so they're giving us back $76,925 for 25-26, and about that same amount for the next 2 years, and then that will be completely gone. So we have a carryover in that of what our current funds are, and then we're going to be getting a little bit more. So that will help on the categorical side of that. Then the governor has the literacy screening one-time funding that has been added into the budget for just almost $7,000. So that's what makes up our changes there in our state revenues. The changes to local revenue consist of local special education funding that has a reduction of $10,000. And then all of the local donation accounts and that have miscellaneous revenues and stuff that come in, we're only recognizing those ones that are continuing, that we know that they're going to come in. But if they're one-time revenues, we take them out of the budget, and then we recognize those as the year goes, and we actually receive the cash and make those budget adjustments. Okay. So on our restricted expenditures, again, here in the certificated, classified, and the benefits, those changes are basically due to the changes that I referenced earlier, with the positional changes from the unrestricted side to the restricted and the restricted side to the unrestricted. And that was because of categorical programs that closed, and then trying to do some cost-saving measures and moving allowable expenses to categorical programs. And then on our materials and supplies, operating expenditures, and capital outlay, again, these are all adjustments that are made based on the revenues, whether it's an expired program or the removal of the one-time, or excuse me, the prior year revenues. So if we had to reduce one of our programs by $68,000, we also have to reduce the matching expenditures for that. And then another part of that is the Golden State Pathways Program.
Yes.
We had that, okay, I wasn't sure if I had that one right. So on that program, when we got those funds, I originally just budgeted the entire amount into materials and supplies. And since then, because we still don't have a finalized budget that's been approved from the state, so what I have done is taken that out. It's a 5-year program. So I removed all of that from the materials and supplies and only put in the prior year and the current year in materials and supplies, and the rest of it falls out to ending fund balance, because that money needs to be saved for the next 3 years of that program. So there's a big change there as well. The capital outlay was removed. That was for one-time purchases by the Ag Department for categorical programs. And then there's no changes to the other outgo there. And the contributions, wait, nope, not there yet. The indirect costs. So on the indirect costs, again, we're charging whatever is categorical programs we can, whatever the allowable rate, indirect cost rate is. Yes.
I don't know if I'm reading it wrong, but my brain is telling me that if we're moving salaries from unrestricted to restricted, wouldn't then the restricted expenditures be greater than the year before? Or what am I seeing? What am I missing?
So on the restricted side of the budget, we took out $522,000 and put it over into the unrestricted side. And then from the restricted side, there were 3 positions that we took and put over into the restricted side. In addition, there are changes here for vacancies that we have where people are leaving, and they may have been a high earner or a low earner, and so we don't know what the next person's going to be, so we picked a median number to project that. So this is going to change quite a bit when we come back for first interim, because there are so many vacancies and unknowns that are built into the positions right now.
It seems to be a little bit encouraging that even though you had to move money even though you moved positions from unrestricted to restricted, we're still spending a little bit less at least in the current projections, even though there haven't changed. That's
Yeah.
good news, right? I mean,
Well, yeah, and some of that also is going to be, if you have a categorical program that expired, such as an example, the one that I can think of, the big one that comes right to my head is the one that ended for $522,000. I mean, we have a couple of other small programs. The COVID funds, those ended. We didn't spend those on salaries last year because we knew that they were going to be ending and didn't have enough money. So, you know, those were spent on one-time purchases. So it's kind of a combination of things. So once we get to a 45-day revise, and because we still don't know, we just still don't have the final information from the governor's budget. So there's still some pretty big guesses in there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's our other sources and uses, and again, it's just the contributions where you can see that that has increased, mostly to special education. Here is our fund balance, and again, that has decreased, and some of that is from the expired funds, you know, or the reductions of prior year revenues where we have to match those expenditures and those reductions and stuff. So that's where we are with ending fund balance. And again, this money is restricted, so it can always only be spent within whatever the approved program is. And this is that really beautiful document.
It's way too big.
The multi-year, I mean, I put it in here. I mean, it's in your packets. You know, it's contains just a lot of information. You have the unrestricted and the restricted, the combined. So you have the June budget, and then you have your 2 out years. So this is, you know, this is basically when you look at this document, you can see where we are deficit spending, and in that 3rd year out, we have a structural problem. So I'll kind of go over a little bit of in multi-year projection. We used the enrollment was projected flat based on the minimal growth that we projected for 25-26 with AD projected at 92. So we just left that flat all the way through the out years. Property taxes are projected with a 4.5% growth. Our growth has been a little bit higher than that, but this is just being conservative. So if it comes in higher than that, that would be great. But we've averaged about 5%. So it's just being a little bit more conservative. The unduplicated pupil count has been revised to correspond with the minimal growth of the LCFF. The COLA, again, is projected at 3.02 for 26-27 and 3.42 for 27-28. These will likely change as the state budget conditions change in their ongoing projections. So like we saw the projections being really high in the past, I mean, they're likely to change. There is not a change in the STRS benefit rate. They're staying flat at 19.1, but the PERS rate does increase from 26.81 to 26.9 to 27.8 in the out years. Currently, there are no planned changes to the health and welfare cap to increase that. So the next little slide is, this is a little bit more detail of one component of the multi-year projection. And this is just kind of showing you, these are the basic lines that show you where our structural deficit is. So you can see that the revenues less expenditures, this is only for the unrestricted side. And you can see, it's like, if you just look at revenues and expenditures, wow, we end the year with 2.9 million for 25-26 and 3.1 in 26-27 and 3.3 in 27-28. But you have to take it down one more line, and you look at that negative number for 25-26, a negative number 4.4 million. That's because that's our contributions and our transfers out, other bills that we have to pay. So that changes our fund balance. That means that we are spending more than what we are bringing in. So our change in fund balance is a negative 1.4 million in 25-26. So we project our beginning balance to start at 4.8 million, and you take that 1.4 from that, and now we're down to 3.3, okay? And then that 3.3, the non-spendable, the assigned, the reserve for economic uncertainty, and then the unassigned there. Okay, so you see that in that 25, 26. When you go into 26, 27, and you look at that column in that same way, you can see that our assigned balance drops down from 1.6 to 1.9. Our reserve stays the same, but we have nothing left over. Okay? So then in that third year out, so our beginning fund balance is now dropped down to just over 2 million. And because of the expending that we're doing, we make our reserve requirement by just a few $100s there at 700. So you can see it was 825, now we're down to 769. We don't have the funds available to maintain it at 825. Now we're down to 769. And that's just, you know, a few $100s above what the minimum required, and we have nothing to spare. That's 3%. It's exactly 3%. The others are 3.2 and 3.1, I believe. So if we had to do a 4-year projection, we wouldn't make it. Okay? So this is how, you know, whether you want to consider it a dire situation or not dire, but like knocking on our door, because this is the projection of what the known facts are today. This is what we're looking at. So, you know, things could change. One of our big concerns is at the federal level, all of the federal uncertainty. If the federal government were to remove our federal funding that we receive, we would be hugely hurt and in a ton of trouble. Just in one federal program alone, we have over $300,000 in salaries. You know, so if we had to take that back into the unrestricted, we wouldn't make it. So.
What are the chances that you're hearing
How about now?
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. What are the chances if we do lose all of our federal funding for one reason or another? Have you heard anything from the state about their position to make up the difference? Like if the feds cut the money off, is the state prepared to step in and make us whole?
The state doesn't have that money. The state doesn't have that kind of money available. You're talking about, I mean, we're basically a small district, and 300,000 for us is a big deal. But if you start looking at some of the bigger districts and the amount of federal funding that they get, you know, if you have the federal government withhold or cancel or whatever federal funding, there are a majority of the districts in California, or a good chunk of them, I would say, that would probably be facing state takeover.
I will say the things that I have seen have been when they talk about significant reductions to education funding, again, all uncertain,
Yeah.
but that they have focused more on things like student loans. They've talked about Title I and special education funding remaining untouched. Of course, our special education funding is not what it has always been promised to be anyway. There are other things, we talked about Title II, Title III, Title IV, that I have not heard guarantees. So at this point, we're budgeting with the idea that we're going to remain status quo.
Right.
On those big programs, which I think is probably our best prediction. It's hard to predict anything else at this point.
Yeah. There was more information that came out today that talks about, you know, some of the different programs that they're looking at cutting at the federal level. And in looking through that list, there's only the Title III and Title IV programs that could impact us. Our Title III programs are not hugely significant. It's probably in total between two programs about $18,000. And then the Title, and I don't remember the Title IV program.
I don't remember
off the
Title IV off the top of my head either.
Yeah, I can't remember what
We
that one
both
is.
remembered the same one. That was
Yeah,
helpful.
so there, so far, from everything that I've seen, those are the only two programs that I've seen that potentially could be in jeopardy for us. Because as Jeff said, most of what we're hearing is Title I, because Title I is allocated by Congress. It takes congressional action to take that away. The special education funding, again, that's another, that's part of the IDEA, which was a congressional act, so it has to be congressionally to be able to take it away. It doesn't mean that something couldn't be done to tie it up and withhold it from us for a while, which would affect our cash flow. But, it's, again, just, I only mention it because if I don't mention it and it happens, it's like, why didn't you guys say something? Well, it's, there's so much uncertainty right now at the federal level, and that's just kind of concerning. So, but for right now, there's only two programs potentially that we could be impacted by.
As long as Congress
Doesn't touch those programs.
doesn't touch those programs.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the need for those is so widespread. Title III, for instance, is English learners,
Yeah.
which is, when you talk about, Title I is for low socioeconomic status, and then obviously special education is students with learning disabilities. Those have such a huge constituency that affects every corner of the country. So,
There doesn't seem to be a huge appetite to continue to serve those populations, though, so that's why
Yeah.
I'm.
yeah, it's concerning. It's just such a large constituency that, again, everything that we've seen has been that at this point, those seem to be safer than, for instance, English, supporting students who are learning English as a second language.
What about the reimbursements from SELPA? How are those going? That's a big chunk of our budget, right?
Well, we get so 23, 24, when we closed the year, we submitted our excess cost to the SELPA for allocation. And I don't remember those numbers off the top of my head, but we did not get 100% of it back, what we submitted. We only got a portion.
Are we talking about extraordinary costs?
Yeah, the
No,
extraordinary
okay.
costs. We only got a portion of that back, and that portion just, basically, it comes in and helps offset some of the contribution that happens to special ed services, or the offset some of the increased costs. So, because it goes right back into special
Yeah.
ed. There is one small piece of the special ed SELPA that there were some funds in the SELPA pot of money that no one who works at LCOE or in the SELPA or at LCOE knows why they were saving this pot of money in the SELPA. There had to have been an intent and a reason, but all of those people are gone. So the SELPA decided that they would allocate those funds that have been saved back out to the districts. So we are positioned to get back, and again, I want to say it's approximately $200,000. So that will help us, but it's one time, we're going
Right.
to get it one time, and we're getting it for 24, 25.
And that's in there?
Well, this is moving forward, and it's not recognized in the current year yet because we haven't received actual final numbers. They were going to
Right.
try and get that out to us this last week, and I haven't seen anything, the final document yet. So, and I believe it was around $200,000 for us. So that will help offset some of the contribution that we have to make. So that'll help reduce that a little bit, which will trickle down. But we'll see that in closing. As soon as I get those final numbers, that'll happen in closing.
The mall reporting, you said, was less?
Yeah, so the mall reporting, I took out the, so we don't recognize the year, we haven't been recognizing the years properly. as an example, quarter 1, 2, and 3 for 24, 25, 1, 2, 3, and 4, each one of those quarters should be recognized in 24, 25. When you submit the invoice, you should be recognizing that as a receivable and recognizing the revenue. That has not been being done in the past. So it's kind of, I'm trying to get that cycle back in place so that we're recognizing the correct revenue in the correct fiscal year. So some of that is an adjustment for prior year quarter that was recognized in the current year, and because you can't really recognize 5 quarters in 1 year, right? So there's got to be an adjustment somewhere. So that's where I'm trying to make that adjustment this year for 24, 25, so that it doesn't flow into 25, 26.
So we're still reporting.
Yeah, we're still reporting, we're still doing all of that. You know, and as a matter of fact, we just submitted another quarter, and I don't have the final numbers yet, but when I get the final numbers, then I take that number, I recognize it as a receivable. I mean, it takes a year or two to get it, but, you know, it'll eventually come in, but that way we can track it. And then we're recognizing the revenue in the correct period. And it'll be 4 quarters in the correct period. So, yeah. Yeah. And that was pretty much it. The rest, oops, wrong way. Oh, now
your
there's questions. Are there any other questions?
I was just curious how that interest-bearing account is impacting us. About a year ago, we heard that
What you heard was not correct.
Really?
No, it was not correct. So I saw some emails and information, you know, that floating around. The interest apportionment, so I know how that interest apportionment works because 20 plus years ago, 22 years, 25 years ago, whatever it was, I worked at the county auditor's office and I used to do the interest apportionment. So I know how that process works. And it hasn't changed. So the interest apportionment goes out, it's done quarterly. And again, this is another one that we are not, and this is not our bookkeeping, this is coming from the county auditor. We have 1 quarter of the prior year that's being recognized in the current year, and then 3 quarters of the current year. We are getting all of our interest. We have never not gotten it. It has always come. We get it quarterly. It gets posted.
It wasn't told to us that we weren't getting the interest. What was said was that the money wasn't being invested into an interest-bearing account. So the interest that all the schools were getting.
That's not true.
Okay, that's
It's
interesting.
in the county treasury. So in the county treasury, and hopefully the new county treasurer is going to get up to speed, but they should be providing us with a report of what all the investments are. They are mandated to have those invested, and they have a consultant who works with them to help them and advise them on how to invest those funds. And that is done on a regular basis.
And
So-
there wasn't a break in that, there wasn't nobody falling down on the job,
No.
so to speak. Okay.
No, because they're audited just like a school district is. And if they had audit deficiencies in that, you would see it, and you would hear about it in a grand jury report, you know, because they have to report to the Board of Supervisors. So, no, the interest it is invested, it is monitored, and it is dispersed out to, you know, to all of the different entities who are pooled into that based on your
Right.
pro rata share.
So no changes in terms of those payments then?
No, and one of the things that we are really, really good about, and like as an example, this week, there were two deposits that we did this week. We want that money to be in, because if we get in $175,000, I don't want that sitting in a desk drawer, in the safe. I want that up at the county treasury. So we might have done a deposit at the beginning of the week, and we're going to do another deposit because, well, look what we got in the mail, surprise. So, you know, we get our money in and up to the county treasury as quickly as we possibly can so that it is interest bearing, and we earn interest on it. So, yeah.
Very good. Any other questions? Anything from Ken or Ray? Or Leslie?
Leslie, we can call on you guys one at a time.
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
Just so I'm thinking of it correctly then, in the projections, you've calculated in a conservative estimate of what the next 2 years' COLAs are going to be. And to put it in simple terms, the school district gets a paycheck from the state, and we have our bills that we need to pay, and we have a savings account. And at the end of the year, this year, we'll have 4 point something in our savings account.
We will have 3.3.
3
We are
Well,
projecting.
remember the difference of this year and this year.
Well, at the
Oh,
end
well-
of 24, 25.
Right.
Okay, 24, 25, we are projecting that we will have 4.8 million
In our savings account.
in our
Yep.
savings.
So then we go through 25, 26, getting our paycheck from the state, paying our bills. We have more bills than we have money coming in, so we dip into our savings account, and at the end of 25, 26, we're now down to
3.3.
3.3. So we start 26, 27 with
3.3.
3.3. We get our paychecks from the state, we have our bills to pay, we're still overspending. So by the end of
26, 27,
27,
we're down to 2 million.
2
Just over
million.
2 million.
So then we start the year in 27, 28, which is the second year out, which is what we have to send to the county.
Right.
With that 2.2 million?
And it's just $2,020,429.
And we get our money from the state, we pay our bills. As it is right now, we're still paying out more than we're bringing in. So by the end of that second year out, we're down to,
We've depleted our savings.
we don't have a savings account anymore.
We don't have a savings account
So
anymore.
if everything were to stay kind of how it is right now, and we fast forward to this meeting next year in 2026, we don't have a positive budget at that point.
No,
Correct.
that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that explained it.
That was a great
Simple,
question.
yeah, thank you.
And then
was
that
great.
savings account, at the end of that, if we had a deferral, then we'd really be out, right? Because that's your cash
Well,
flow, right?
the savings, so that gets into a whole nother thing, because in the cash flow, when we're looking at the cash flow and stuff, if we get down too low in our cash, because it's not just our payment from the state. So we get property taxes, and we get those basically 3 times a year. We get like 55% in December, and then we get another 50% in April, and then the true up 5% at the end of the year. Okay, so that comes at different sporadic periods, right? So then we have all of our money that comes in for other state categorical programs and stuff, and then there's the state aid that comes in, and that comes in on a monthly basis, with the exception of the months that we get our property taxes, being December and April, okay? So when we're looking at the cash flow, we're looking at all of those different factors, and because we may have to pay our bills before we get our property taxes, and we don't have enough of our savings right now, we're waiting for reimbursement, because everything from the federal government, we have to spend first and wait for reimbursement. Well, if they're 3 and 4 months out or delaying the payments, that could affect our cash flow.
And that's why you're always telling us that 3% is not enough.
It's not.
And that's
Yes.
why we want more than
Right.
3%.
So that, in that third year out, you see that 769,000, that doesn't even pay our mid-month payroll.
So if we had a deferral at that point, it would just,
We'd be hosed.
Yeah.
we'd be hosed.
So
Sorry,
the
I
only-
keep saying that word.
The only thing that helps us
I wasn't
in
gonna
that
say that.
situation is that what you would have to do is go out for what's called a trans, tax revenue anticipation note, okay? So you basically borrow against your property taxes
I feel like Middletown has done that in the past, like
It's
a
been
long
a
time ago.
very long time
Yeah,
ago.
like
Very,
15
very-
years
yeah.
was the last time we did it.
Yeah, there's also, and I don't know if the county still does this or not, but you can borrow against, and it takes a board resolution here, and it has to be submitted to the Board of Supervisors, and then the Board of Supervisors has to approve it. But they did where you could do an advance of your property tax allocation from the county. That is something that is also an option versus doing a trans.
Man.
So, and I'm sure that program still exists. I would have to verify that it does. But the trans, all of the CBOs in the county have already received information from the county office on a trans, just in case anybody is having issues with cash flow. So we'll be monitoring that closely, throughout the year, because it's not like you can just, like for your personal stuff, you can go down to the bank, here's all my information, blah, 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 24 hours, you got the information. Well, it's not like that when you go to get a trans. It's much more extensive,
Yeah.
and it takes time. So we need to do that well in advance if that situation does come to fruition. Right now, I don't see that being an issue, but should situations change, we'll be monitoring that very closely. So, yeah.
So one more question, sorry, Zoe.
No, that's
Um,
fine.
That's why we're here.
So
Yeah.
when we fast forward to this time next year, everything stays relatively the same. We don't have a positive budget because that second year out, we've got no money. So that was what you were talking about, where we have to pass an MOU, and then starting this fall, we have to come up with a budget reduction plan that fixes this deficit spending that we're doing, so that over the next 2 years, we don't get in that position. So we implement that plan. The reason we have to implement it this coming fiscal year is so that this time next year, we're able to have a positive budget.
Right.
That we can show that, because it's not so much what's happening next year or the following year, it's the fact that we have to show next year and 2 years out, every single year, that by that third year, we're still going to be able to pay our bills.
Right. The wolf's not at the door, but the wolf's at the front gate.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is why we are going back to our earlier discussion, looking at everything that we can do to improve attendance. Our main reason for improving attendance is that that's what helps students be successful in school. The secondary reason for improving attendance is that that's how we get funded. Also, at the same time, we are looking at every expenditure, every hire. Twice this week, principals have submitted a request for staff that I have responded and said, hey, is there a way that we can take a look at this? And one of the principals who came in who had that request first has already said, yeah, we can make this a smaller position with fewer hours and get by with that. And then the other one was just today, and so I haven't gotten a response from that principal back yet. But every expense, every hire, everything we can do to improve attendance, all of those things we are trying to do to push the wolf further down the path.
Are there any think tanks in the state? Because I know that we're not the only school district in the state or the country even that's
Right.
in this position. And there are hundreds of districts that are even worse shape than we are in. Are there think tanks out there that are talking about out-of-the-box ways to reinvent how we deliver public education to try to continue to serve our communities with I mean, clearly there's a disconnect between the model we're following in public education and the amount of funding we're receiving, because I don't think that we're so grossly inefficient here in Middletown
Right.
that we're overspending, haphazardly by $1.5 million, every year. But what do we do?
And I don't know about a think tank per se. I will say that every time I see an article about a district having to make reductions, I read it for one of the main reasons, two reasons. One, there's something about Misery Loves Company and knowing that we're not the only ones going down this path, but also looking for ideas. And, that's exactly, trying to glean from as many different sources as possible. And in reading articles about Oakland Unified, obviously they have a very different context than we have in Middletown, but still, I'm going to read them, or Santa Rosa, or
I just hope that we
West
can
Contra
keep
Costa.
working together as a school community and as a greater MUSD community to really recognize the big picture. And I know that we have interest groups that are very focused on the needs of those groups, whether, we're talking about this group or that group or whatever. But at the end of the day, our priority has to be continuing to survive and serve our students.
Agree.
And so my hope is that when we're having conversations with each other in the months ahead, and we're having to make these hard decisions, that we keep reminding each other that we have to do whatever we can do to stay a going concern,
Yep.
a functioning school district that's serving our students.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean I don't care about
No, yeah.
our employees and that's super important too, but we have to provide public education. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
To everybody, to all of our children.
Yeah.
Well, and some of one of the things, the new funding model, which is not new anymore, but Prop 98. Prop 98 was supposed to be a minimum guarantee. It was supposed to accelerate, and it never has. It's always stayed at the minimum, test 1, test 2, test 3, blah, 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 all these different things. I did see in some of the bulletins that came out that there is one of the representatives, and I believe he's from Southern California, who has put together legislation that wants to, again, do what we did with the LCFF when we went from revenue limit to LCFF. It was a graduated schedule and to try and equalize everybody. Well, he's proposing to, increase the funding for LCFF and do it over a period of, I think it's through 2035.
I was going to say 10 years.
Huh?
I was going to say 10 years is
Yeah,
what I was.
I think it was through 2035, and I don't, again, it was one of those bills that was presented, and I don't know whether it's been gutted or whether it's been put into the recycle bin for the next legislative session, or if it went to the Appropriations Committee. I doubt that it went to Appropriations, because when it goes to Appropriations, you have to find the money, and if it doesn't, then it goes back into another pile. So I don't know where that legislation is right now, but that was one that was out there, and I was very interested in that one, because it would be nice to see our funding not be at the basic minimum, it was supposed to be a minimum guarantee with an accelerator, and our COLA accelerator is not keeping up pace at all.
Right.
So, yeah, so that's kind of where we are in a nutshell, so. And we're not the only, it's all over the state. It's all over the country. It's not just here. There are other articles that we've seen that are other states that our schools are having the same kind of issues.
Well, and it's so frustrating because the general population, I don't think really understands. We work so hard to barely understand how all this is going on, and to hear, oh, well, public education is so inefficient, and there's all this waste and this and that. And I'm looking around our school district, and I'm not seeing the waste, and to know that we still have to clean up our budget by $1.5 million, it just,
Yeah.
I don't know where this magic is going to come from.
Right.
Our fancy palatial boardroom.
Our fancy district office.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the next rainstorm doesn't give you guys wet hair,
Yeah.
Geez.
Yeah.
Okay,
All
so
right.
with that being said, do we have any other questions, comments? Ken? You can come up.
I was just wondering, is there a way that, I know this is a bad subject, but, like to freeze salaries for those 3 years? I mean, do you have to always be negotiating and?
It would have to be a
negotiating
negotiated item.
Yeah.
And and we run into a couple of different challenges of, it ends up not, this is gonna sound weird at first, but it ends up not affecting everybody the same, because if you're on a multi-year step, or you've topped out, it ends up hurting people differently. And so it is something that we could negotiate, but it would require agreement.
What percentage of the budget is based on salaries of the whole budget?
About 85?
Eight-
By the time, here's where we get into different things. It's 80 to 85 of the
85
unrestricted.
unrestricted, about 74 when you're combined, when it's combined.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
as a whole too with benefits though, right?
Yeah, that's including
Yeah.
benefits.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Thank you for that question. Okay, any other questions? Okay, we're going to close this public hearing at
7:35.
7:35.
I just want to point out my presentation was shorter. Not that it's a competition.
Okay, on to business and facilities. Developer fee justification study. This was originally brought to us, wasn't that in April? Can you speak on this, please?
Oh, I could do that.
You can do that from here. You're not presenting. You're allowed to do that from right here. I can even talk about it if you want.
Okay, so, annually, the state increases, makes an adjustment to developer fee, allowable developer fee charges. So what this is, and that becomes effective January 1st of any year, calendar year. So if we wanted to have what this is to have the study done to find out if we have justification to increase our developer fees to the new rates when they get issued in January. So we were out of cycle last year when I brought this forward. I think we brought it forward in September-ish, somewhere around there. Because we hadn't done, nothing had been done with the developer fees, I believe, for 2 years. We had not increased them, so it was quite a significant increase from a 2-year-old rate to what the current allowable rates were. By doing this, this also keeps us in line so that we don't have in the future one of those drastic increases in developer fees. It keeps it graduated, going up to what is allowable. So this is for the services for King to do whatever it is that they do to justify
Right.
the demographics and the potential development to justify the increase of the developer fees, should they go up. If they don't go up, then we don't, I mean, it doesn't change. But they have continually gone up every year.
The fees are super restrictive. Can we use the fees to pay for the study?
Yes,
I don't know.
yeah.
It'd be a bummer if they didn't go up. And we paid somebody to do them out of our fund.
Yeah, it's, the fees are very restrictive, on what you can use it, and that's
Yeah.
where currently we had, I want to say it was close to $800,000 in the developer fees, and that is all being lumped in with the expenditures for expansion, allowable expenditures tied to the bond.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
so that we're expending it as allowable.
Okay. Super. Okay, do I have a motion to approve item 8A, developer fee justification study?
Move to approve the justification study.
It's been moved by Chris,
Second.
seconded by Annette. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, passed 4-0. Item B, Cis Gas 45 Quarter 3 Statement. And Tanya, again, can you speak on that?
So, so the GASB 45 quarter 3 statement, back in ancient days, allocated it pro rata back out to all of the districts that were part of that JPA. What the district chose to do at that time was to invest this money in a trust to build funds for OPEB benefits,
Which stands for?
other post-employment benefits. So we only have 3 employees, no, we have 2 employees and 1 retiree that are eligible for this program because it's not an ongoing program. It ended at some point. And so it's just three persons, one that's getting benefit now, the other 2 are still working. So we started out with a deposit of like $70,000, and it's up to $205,000 or something, I think is what it is in this statement. So the money is there to be used for that, in addition to the Fund 20 post-employment benefits that we have on our books. In combination of that, to pay for those employees, health benefits, when they retire. So this is just that quarterly statement that we get.
Okay.
And it's just bringing it forward for you guys to acknowledge. That's it. So you'll see
Okay.
each quarterly statement in an annual.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions? Any questions from anybody out there? And do I have a motion to approve item 8B?
I move to approve.
Been moved by Annette, seconded
I second.
by Allison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 4-0. Item 8C, 2425 Prop 28 Arts and Music Annual Report. Go ahead, Tanya, you're on.
Okay, so one of the compliance requirements for Prop 28 is that there's like 4 different reports that we have to do for this program. One of them is this annual report, which just basically identifies what we're doing with the money, how many teachers, what are we expending it on. So we just have to bring that forward. The board has to acknowledge it and recognize it, and we post it on our website. It's just a compliance requirement of Prop 28 funds for transparency purposes.
Oh, okay. Any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
Move
Uh,
to approve.
Item
Second.
8C, it's been moved by Annette, seconded by Chris. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 4-0. Resolution 8D, or item 8D, resolution number 222425, education protection account.
So again, this is just part of our compliance with the education protection account. So we have to bring forward, here's what we're going to spend the money on that falls within the allowable expenditures for the EPA account, and a resolution for the board acknowledging that and how that money came to be. And we do an estimated one at the beginning of the fiscal year, and then at the end of a fiscal year, we'll bring the final one. So this is doing this for the estimate for the 25-26 budget. And then at the end of the year when we close the books, so for 24-25, when I bring forward the unaudited actuals in September, you'll get the final one for 24-25, the final number. So it just kind of hits the books twice a year.
And this is in relation to all teachers' salaries,
Yes,
right?
it's all teacher salaries. We don't pay anything else from there because administrator or general operating expenditure, administrative expenses, maintenance expenses are not allowed to be expended from these funds. So the district has historically always spent it on teacher salaries.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay, do I have a motion to approve item D, resolution number 222425?
I move to approve.
I
Been
second.
Moved by Chris, seconded by Allison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 4-0. Item E, Resolution 232425, developing and implementing a deficit and elimination plan as part of our fiscal responsibility.
Yeah, we've talked about this. This is not one you're going to approve tonight, but it's one that we wanted to make sure that we didn't want it to come as a surprise in 2 weeks.
Oh, so this will be something that'll be coming back
This-
to us
yeah,
with the
this-
budget
this
to be
is-
approved?
Yeah, this is the resolution for
Okay.
the deficit elimination plan creation. So it's part of the LCAP budget approval packet.
So it'll be ongoing, every single regular board meeting. I'm assuming we're going to be talking about this up to the time that we implement.
Well, we will go through a similar process next year to what we did this year. And as Tanya and I got caught up a little bit earlier, we've been saying this year very differently.
Yes.
'Cause right now in our brains, this year is 25, 26 is already this year. But, so we will go through something similar in the 25, 26 school year that we did in the 24, 25 school year to make sure that we gather as much input and information as we can, gather input and provide information to all of our community partners, including staff and parents. Hopefully it won't be on quite as rushed of a timeline. We won't just have a Tuesday, Thursday turnaround. But yeah, it will definitely be something that we're talking about throughout the fall.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, item F, Consolidated Application Spring Release.
Okay, so this is the spring release, and it is basically the application for federal funding. Imagine that. And the reporting of 23, 24, the final reporting of those expenditures, and then the 23, 22, 23, and then 23, 24, and then the 12-month report for 24, 25, and then the application for 25, 26.
Wow.
All combined into one document. And then there's all these other pieces of compliance that we have to do in addition to that, to supplement that. So this is just the application for federal funding.
Okay. Do I have any questions? Do I have a motion to approve item F, Consolidated Application Spring Release?
Move to approve.
It's been moved by Chris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Annette. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass 4-0. Item G, approval of contract renewal with Colby Technologies, quality bidders. Tanya, you can take a rest.
Your fly's still there. He's been waiting for you.
He was going to give you an update. So this contract is not really associated with the bond. The MUSD is a CUPCA district, so you have to maintain a list of CUPCA contractors. This $5,000 contract is yearly, and they do the background checks on the contractors that sign up for CUPCA, and they create the CUPCA list for us. And it's for district use for any projects that they do.
Oh. I thought it said a $10,000.
Yeah, it's at
Did I read it incorrectly?
Yeah, I forget there's two levels, there's 5,000 for a certain level and then 10,000 for the next. But the amount of time it saves, it's part of it.
I was just going to say, this is one of those things that my understanding is that districts who decide, oh, we'll do this on our own, quickly decide
Yeah,
that,
they don't.
no, they're not gonna.
Yeah, it's not fun.
But we already have,
We already used them.
yeah, we already use them.
Yes, that's
And we
correct.
already have, so now we have created a list.
Yes.
You gotta do it every year.
And you have to update it every year?
Everybody's gotta reapply for your list.
Well, and it's also added to, I mean, you could have a CUPCA contract, you could have a contractor sign up for CUPCA tomorrow, and they would need a background check, and be put on the list.
Yeah. Well, I was reading about it too a little bit, and I appreciate that also, the people that are filling out the paperwork, they can utilize them to help
Yeah,
them fill it out.
they utilize quality bidders. There
Yeah.
are districts that do this on their own. They have more personnel dedicated to this sort of thing.
Personnel.
And we're back.
They fit in that 85% of expenditures.
Yeah.
Are there any questions for item G, the contract for renewal of the Colby Technologies quality bidders? May I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Allison, seconded by Chris. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, passed 4-0. Thank you. Item H, approval of notice of completion, the Cotty Valley ES painting.
So that just closes everything out financially. All a knock really does is it states that any suppliers and vendors to that project it takes their 90 days to file a lien down to 30 days. That time has already passed. So this is really just kind of a symbolic thing. We don't prioritize them because in K-12 construction, by the time everything's financially completed, the preliminary liens are kind of gone anyway. So it's something we do with every project, file it with the county. So that's all this is.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve item H, notice of completion of the Cotty Valley painting?
Move to approve.
It's been moved by Chris. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Allison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passed 4-0. Item H, approval of notice of, Citizen Bond Oversight Committee, Measure H, annual report for the fiscal year 23-24. Where'd he go? Oh.
He's
Like,
gonna
you
try to
were
get away
done?
from the fly.
Yeah.
So this is a report that's typically given, no. Is that after you now? Okay, so this is the annual CBOC audit report. This is a report that was presented to the board. The board approved it. Our audit report goes to the CBOC. This is typically delivered by the CBOC chair, who there was a mix-up with the calendar, and he's not here. I noticed he wasn't here, so I thought I would stand in for him. We do have a CBOC member that I would invite up to give the report if he'd like to. I didn't think so. So essentially, this is a 45-page document. What ends up happening is we take the audit that is presented to the board approves it, that goes to the CBOC, they review the report, we assist the CBOC in creating this presentation, and they deliver it to the board, they sign off on the report. So even though the CBOC chair is not here, he has signed this document. So essentially, this walks us through the history of the bond, district leadership over the course of the bond.
There's a lot of names on that.
There are some names, yes. Members of the CBOC and what roles they fill. Again, when we got here, when Van Pelt was introduced to the district, there was no CBOC in place. It was a bit of a struggle to get folks into the CBOC, but we were successful, and we have a fantastic CBOC. This outlines duties and responsibilities. Essentially, what your CBOC does is, remember the old station wagons that had the seats in the way back that faced the other way and would always make you car sick? So that's what the CBOC does, is they sit in that back seat and they look back at what we did. It's another layer of accountability for the bond expenditures. Essentially outlines what their duties are with the expenditures and the annual report. This was in May of 2024. Curtis presented the report to the board. These were our meetings in that fiscal year. And again, this is aged reporting. These are the projects that were completed during that year. These projects were in progress. Just some Measure H photos of some of the projects we did. The auditor is an independent auditor that audits the bond on a yearly basis. Tanya really enjoys that. It's rather in-depth what they look at, and they don't audit every single expenditure. It's random. In this particular audit round, they audited 41% of all expenditures. Cowley Valley Fire Alarm, they reviewed the change orders, make sure everything is in compliance. Total financial audit. District utilized Medicare bonds funded solely for projects approved by the voters. Audit findings reflect the district commitment to transparency and responsible management of bond funds. It's fantastic. Ultimately, the important thing about the audit is there's no findings. One of the projects that was audited was the Cowley Valley restroom renovation project. That project, if you recall, had no bidders. So that had to be a negotiated contract. Very easy to make a mistake, very easy to have a finding on a project like that, and we had no findings. These are some of the finances that the auditor went through. And this is basically the CBOC accepting the CBOC or the audit report and CBOC chair's signature there. And we've got CBOC bylaws, resolutions, and then everything from here down is the audit report. I did want to make note of one thing that I did read in the presentation that I always kind of take pride in, and the district should take pride in it as well. And it's this part of this here is the commitment to transparency. Comprehensive assessment of internal controls was performed, and discussions with management affirmed that no significant deficiencies were identified. Highlighted effectiveness of the district financial reporting process. That's a huge tip of the cap to Tanya, and the job that she's done since she's been here. Something the district should really be proud of. These aren't easy audits to pass. Engagement with management was notably smooth. No significant challenges. We struggle with these with some districts, and we didn't here. It hasn't been a problem. It's just this financial highlights is something the district should really be proud of in their expenditures of the bond funds. And most importantly, what this does is maintains our eligibility for state matching funds. Any questions?
I'm sorry, that was directed to us, or is there any questions from the board?
When would we, so this time next year, we would see the 24, 25?
Yes.
report?
Yeah, and this one noted the findings from the previous year, the corrections have been implemented, so that's good.
It's always a year old.
I just sighed because of the, we need that gym built.
I move to approve Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
Yeah.
Second.
And it's been moved by Chris to approve the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee in a report, and seconded by Annette. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passed 4-0. Okay, we got board-related items, second read and approval of board policies. Do I have are there any questions about the board policies that are the second read? Do I have a motion to approve item 9A, second read and approval of board policies?
I move to approve.
It's been moved by Chris. Do I have a second?
I second. And then,
Second by Annette. Is there any more discussion?
yeah, just a comment that I don't know how many people. I mean, it's a kind of a weird fascination for me, public school board policy. And I don't know how many people are aware of the fact that our policies are 150% better today than they were a few years ago. And thank you, Janelle, for being such a huge part of that process. I would just hope that our team, our MUSD team, all of our team members, our employees, our teachers, our staff, our principals, everybody really just key in to our board policies and are reading them. I know it might seem kind of dry, but there's so much in here that applies to the work that we do every day. And I think it's just really important that, like for example, we have a policy about science instruction. I really hope that our science teachers take a moment to read that new board policy. And so I just wanted to make that comment that there's a lot in these board policies, and there are roadmap to how we do the work that we do along with the administrative regulations. And I really encourage all of our team members to read them.
And a shout out to someone who I am sure is not watching our board meeting, because it's someone who I worked with in a previous district. But I have become Sheila McCabe in some ways. She was one of my directors when I was a principal. And she was known for, when we would ask her a question as a principal, she would ask us, so what does the board policy say? Oh, all right, I'll go and look at it. And so, just give me the answer. No, what's the board policy say? And so, and I have in some ways become Sheila, because that's where the answers are.
It's empowering to know that 99% of your questions that you have, it's like the teacher in me is always telling my students, did you read the syllabus?
Uh-huh.
And it's the same thing.
Yep.
Did you read the board policy?
What do the directions say?
Right,
When all else fails,
exactly.
read the directions. Yeah.
So,
And further note on that is reach out to the principal or the district office. If you don't know the answer and you want to know what board policy would I look at to find that answer, or
Yeah.
can you just give me the answer? But yeah,
because a lot of people I don't think also realize that they're organized in a really nifty way. I mean, there are pockets of board policy that apply to you and your job, and you might not ever even have to read the 700s or the 7,000s or the 6,000s. Maybe all you need to read are the 4,000s. And so anyway, it's just a part of our work that I think not a lot of people think a lot about, but it's a big deal.
It's important.
yep. Okay, so we have,
You just have to vote.
yeah. I think it was Chris and Allison, or Chris and Annette. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass 4-0. Okay, student items, interdistrict.
Hang on.
Oh, board self-evaluation.
So we have, and I had reached out to Mr. Cedarquist. We have a contract with him for several board works sessions. And I reached out to him for potential dates for later in the summer. I have not yet heard back from him. When I get the dates from him, I will share those with the rest of the governance team. He and I went back and forth a little bit on, it makes it sound like it was an argument. It wasn't. It was a collaboration on trying to figure out, because he had a evaluation tool that he has used. I said that we had already talked about using CSBAs. He actually would prefer us to use CSBAs, so we'll be getting that coordinated. There is a fee for that, and so it always gets, as we get close to June 30th, July 1st, that always becomes weird. So I will talk to Tanya to get permission on which end of that we want to use. But that will be going out. My guess is that it will be in July. The other thing that I want to bring up and mention is that CSBA has an annual conference that alternates between Northern California and Southern California. It's the first week in December, which this year, A, was in Southern California, and 2, was right after elections. This year, it's not right after elections, and it's in Sacramento. And so, my goodness gracious, there are so many flights. So I wanted to bring that up for discussion and see what the sense of the group is.
Well, I will say I went to the Small School District Association board or conference that was in Sacramento, and I really came back with a lot of exciting thoughts and wished I had one of our team members there to bounce ideas off and to, to talk more deep and bring it back and implement it. So I'm in favor of going, and it is an opportunity because we don't have to fly anywhere. It's right here in Sacramento. So thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or opinions? I know it's only June and we have time to think and talk and make a decision.
Yeah, I think development of the board is a good idea. I think I agree with Zoe. It gives us an opportunity to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening around the state and learn, about best practices and whatnot. I like the fact that it's in Sacramento, and we could probably look at the calendar of events and, possibly I might even offer to commute a couple of days rather than spend the night. There are ways that we can really significantly cut costs and still get all the benefit. I would say, though, that I would like to approach it from a perspective of true professional development this time. The time that we went to San Diego 3 years ago or whenever it was, I think we got a lot out of it, but when we came back, we didn't talk about it.
Right.
So, I'd like to see us divide and conquer, the different sessions and then educate each other about what we learned.
For sure.
And really, get something out of the investment that we made.
For sure. Our admin team will testify that when they go to a professional development opportunity, I ask them for two things. One is, how are you going to apply this in your practice? And two, how can you share this with your colleagues? And so I absolutely agree with you.
When I went back in March to Sacramento, I did stay one night, and then it was, because I put up my own, cost on that. So I went ahead and drove back and forth, and it for 2 days, and it was a lot.
It's a drive.
It was a lot, and you miss out. One of the things I will say is I was kind of bummed because I was like, oh, you kind of missed out on interacting with other, people from different. That's true. So that's the only thing I want to put out there, but definitely the drive is possible. It's only 2 hours. It's not a bad thing. Okay.
Well, I wouldn't want to pressure anybody else to do that. I was just saying I'd offer, and then
We could
also
share a room.
Well, that and I'm happy to donate, my funds. I don't need to be reimbursed for mileage and that kind of thing. I mean, there are ways I think that we can do it in a cost-effective way. So.
That's why I did reach out to Jeff and ask that he pays the fee to go. Because that. But the rest of it, I just felt that it was so important to go.
Yeah.
Especially as the board president, I was trying to pick up on some different things to do, but thank you, yeah.
Okay, so I will send out dates and information on CSBA so that we're making an informed decision, and I will also send out the dates from Eric Cedarquist when I get them from him, and I will send out the link to do the CSBA self-evaluation as soon as I get permission from Ms. Moneybags over here.
When we do the self-evaluation, I remember last time there was confusion, and I can't remember exactly what the confusion was, but it was, were we looking at ourselves as one board member and our performance, or the performance as a board as a whole, I think was,
Okay.
some of us answered the questions one way and some of us answered the other way, and so it made.
So long as we're all doing them the same.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So just maybe give
Okay.
us instructions on that.
I'll
yeah.
do a little bit of research on what the tool is.
Perfect.
And I can maybe even reach out to CSBA and ask them.
Right, what perspective are we answering these?
Okay.
from? Yeah,
Yeah, I'll do a little bit of research on what their recommendation is.
thank you.
I wonder if, small school districts has a self-evaluation that might be free.
I can check.
Would you?
Absolutely.
Great idea, Zoe.
That's why there's a team.
Okay. Item 10, student items, interdistrict transfer requests. Do I have a motion to approve item 10A?
Move to approve.
It's been moved by Chris. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Allison. Any questions on that?
What are we getting from Calistoga for taking so many of our students? That's my question.
I think that's all anyway. Parents' work.
No questions.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, passed 4-0. Personnel. New offers additional assignments, our PAR report, and we've already, I put a little sticky note here about the retirees, but we've already talked about them, so do I have a motion to approve our PAR report, item 11A?
I move to approve.
It's been moved by Allison, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Chris. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 4-0. Item 11B, 2025-2026, Sunshine of MTA Initial Bargaining Proposal to Middletown Unified School District. This is not,
It's not an action item.
it's not an action item because we don't.
No, we're just
Approved,
required, both sides are required to publicly announce the sections of the contract that we're going to want to talk about.
Okay, so are there any questions on item B? Okay, how about item C? Now, is that an action item? Do we have to approve the Sunshine of the MUSD initial bargaining proposal to the Middletown Teacher Association?
Yes, because we are bargaining on your behalf.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, do I have a motion to approve item 11C?
Move to approve item 11C.
Been moved by Chris, do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Allison, are there any questions?
So if it's not sunshined, then we can't add it to the,
Right, and there were some things this year, for instance, questions that came up that were like, oh, the contract is kind of unclear on this, and gosh, we wished that we had been able to talk about it. And so, for instance, there were some questions about leaves, and so you'll notice that that's something that, so there's overlap between, we very much want to work as partners with our bargaining units. And so, yeah, we have had times where we've run into things that we wish we could address, but we couldn't yet. So we just had to wait till the next time around.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved by Chris, seconded by Allison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, passed 4-0. Item D, approval of MOU to address employees working on a 205 calendar.
move to approve?
Second.
It's been moved by Annette, seconded by Chris. Any questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, passed 4-0. Item E, addendum to superintendent contract. Do
Move
I
to
have a
approve.
motion to approve the addendum to superintendent contract?
I move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I second.
It's been moved by Chris, seconded by Allison. Any questions, any comments? You know, I just look forward to our district to continue to improve in a positive way with Superintendent Crane as we work together on our goals and expectations. So,
Me too.
yep. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 4-0. Item 12, curriculum and instruction. A, emergency response instructional continuity.
Continuity plan.
Thank you.
So this is, and I'm going to try to be positive and not too cynical about this.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, I'll leave it at that. So we've had a few different times, different sections of the state have had times where they've had to close schools. We've had it here, fire-related, we've had it here, COVID-related, and the state legislature passed a law requiring us to have a plan to put in place for if and when we need to close schools. We in Middletown are aware that every situation is unique and requires a different approach. And so the way that I look at this is that this is a starting point, because we don't know what the next need to close schools will be because of. We do want to do as best we can to provide continuing instruction for our students. And so this will be our starting point. And so this is a plan that will become part of the school site safety plans. The requirement came out right after we approved the school site safety plans. So instead of asking each principal to resubmit, this is what we will have district-wide. This same plan will become part of each different school's site safety plan and will become part of that process as we move forward.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve item 12A, emergency response instructional plan?
I move to approve.
I second.
It's been moved by Chris, seconded by Allison. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 4-0. Hey, correspondence, pending, nothing, pending agenda items. We have resolutions for limited assignment options, dashboard local indicators, LCAP approval, budget approval, CONAP, and resolution for authorized signers. CONAP. You're going to remove? Okay. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. Any announcements? Important upcoming dates? We've already talked a little bit about that. That you'll
Yep,
be
our next
getting
board
back
meeting
to
will
us.
be in 2 weeks.
Yep. Yahoo. And do I have a final adjournment?
Move to
Motion.
adjourn.
It's been moved by Annette.
Second.
Seconded by Chris. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 4-0.
Enthusiastically seconded.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Audience.
Zoe.
Is that,